¿Qué hora es? It's time we learn how to read the face of a clock. So how do you tell the time in Spanish? ¿Cómo decimos la hora en español? Well, when you want to talk about the hours between 2 and 12, you're always going to start off your expression with son las. That's because there are 2 hours and 15 minutes on the clock, or there are 6 hours on the clock and 13 minutes. But we're only going to use es la for 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 1 o'clock in the morning. That's because there's only 1 hour on the clock, right? For singular, es la. For plural hours, son las. Anytime you want to tell the time after the hour, on the right-hand side of the clock, you're going to add the minutes. And you might want to add just a quarter of an hour, so you'd say y cuarto, like 12:15. Or maybe it's a half past, like they say in Britain. So you'd say son las 2:30. Son las 2:15. Or if it's 2:02, be son las 2:02. But after you pass that 30-minute mark, then you're probably going to use the word menos. We usually don't use that until it's almost like a quarter of or so. Like, oh my gosh, it's a quarter till 3. Or it's 5 minutes till 6. But a lot of times they'll use that for the whole left-hand side of the clock. So it's actually 8 o'clock minus 20 minutes. Right? We say it's 20 till 8. But of course, Spanish is always backwards. So it's 8 minus 20. If you want to talk about a time that's right on the money or right on the dot, of course you're going to say en punto. Son las 5 en punto. Or if you just want to give it's noon or it's midnight, you start out with es. Señor, es mediodía. Clase, mira, ya es medianoche. And of course, if you want to distinguish between the morning time and the maybe evening time, such as like 3 in the morning versus 3 in the afternoon, then you're going to have to add a nice little de la mañana or de la tarde. That way the people you're speaking to on the phone knows where you're at in the world. Because sometimes you might want to call somebody in Singapore, or they might want to call you in California. And so sometimes it's good to establish what time of day you're talking about. All right, so like we had again, before we had son las and es la. That's when you want to tell the time. But what happens if you want to give the time an event happens? So son las 3 would be, oh, it's 3 o'clock right now. I got to go. Versus a las 5 hay un partido de fútbol. Well, right now it's not 5 o'clock, but at 5 there will be a soccer game. So all you're really doing is substituting son and es with an a, just like you do in English. It is 5 o'clock at 5 o'clock. So there you have it. Es la 1 de la tarde. If you look down at the face of your clock right now, it actually would read 1. But now you're talking about maybe later in the day. Yeah, at 1 today I've got class, so I'll meet you up a little bit later. Tengo clase a la 1 de la tarde. Let's see if we can practice the time, shall we? Son las 5:10. Say it out loud. That way you get really good practice. There are 5 hours and 10 minutes on the clock. What about now? ¿Qué hora es? Son las 8:15. Now, besides saying that, you could also use son las 8:15, right? It's 15 minutes after 8. Okay, 2 options as well. Son las 3:30, or you could say son las 3:30. It's just a preference thing. Either one is perfect. Now, careful. Right? There's only 1 hour on the clock, so es la 1. And if we want to say on the dot, es la 1 en punto. Notice the red arrow? Because, of course, they subtract time on the left-hand side of the clock. So if you take that red arrow all the way up to the very tippy top, you're going to see that it's 10 o'clock. But since it's on the left-hand side, we got to say minus 20. So it really is 10 o'clock. Subtract 20 minutes. Or we could also say the other way. Sometimes you'll hear Hispanics say, son las 9:40. Did you get that one? Son las 7 menos cuarto. And of course, you can just give the standard, son las 7:15, or even son las 6:45. Now you're not subtracting, you're just telling me what time it is. Es medianoche. You can also say son las 12. But now I'm saying medianoche, I know it's 12 in the morning. Ahora te toca a ti. It's your turn. Try and say them out loud as they come up. I'll give you an appropriate amount of time, and then I'll give you the answer. But hopefully you said it before I do. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 6. If you want to be exact, en punto. Y ahora, ¿qué hora es? How about now? What time is it? Sí, son las 2:30 o son las 2:30. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Es la 1:15? O también se dice, es la 1:15. Don't see any red arrows, so it must be adding, right? You need an E. After you say the hour, add how many minutes? Son las 11:25. And to tell the truth, that's about the only way you can say it. There's 11 hours and 25 minutes on the clock. So just a little bit shy of the hour, so we have to subtract. Son las 7:05. Or you could also say 6:55. Son las 6:55. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 2:15. O también es la 1:45. Right. Now this time, don't forget to say de la mañana, de la tarde, or de la noche, depending on the time you see. In case somebody wants to meet at 1:25 p.m., they don't really want to meet you at 1:25 a.m., right? Most people are in bed by then. All right, ¿qué hora es? Número 1. Es la 1:25 de la tarde. So we're just putting a little tag on the end. In the afternoon. Y número 2. ¿Qué hora es? Well, actually went to number 3. Son las 6:30 de la mañana. Now let's try number 2. I think I just went left, right, left, right. I apologize. Son las 9:20 de la noche. Or you could also think of it as son las 8:40 de la noche. Y finalmente tenemos número 4. Son las 11:15 de la tarde. Oh, no se dice. De la mañana. I made a couple errors in this slide. Son las 11:15 de la mañana o también son las 10:45 de la mañana. All right, that's it. Es el fin. Hopefully that was a nice good review of how to tell time and using your bigger numbers. Hasta luego.